afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard the flight deck. I'm your friendly neighborhood flight medic Barry, and I'm super excited to be your podcast host for today's podcast. On behalf of Beyond the Sirens, we're really happy to bring you all these special edition podcasts as it relates to EMS Appreciation Week, the days, kind of what they mean, and really gives us a chance to connect with you all, the viewers out there. And I'm excited to be able to really talk about days 4 and 5, which gives us the opportunity to kind of turn our the attention from all on us and really focus it outwards and public relations and community relations and really bridging the gap between first responder and the public we serve, because we are public servants after all. And so days 4 and 5 are really in regards to how we can better advocate to you all specific topics as it pertains to our little kiddos, as well as emboldening you and kind of giving you the courage and the confidence to go out and take a first aid class, take a CPR class, or a class called Stop the Bleed, so that you can maybe really be ready if the time were ever to arise that you needed to ever help a loved one or help somebody in need. And so if you haven't gotten caught up, though, we've done a couple of podcasts throughout the week as it pertains to EMS Appreciation Week. We just did one with Doc Levi. You should check it up above there, where we get the opportunity to talk about EMS and education. And so if you haven't seen any of those podcasts, don't know what I'm talking about, check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music, and all the different platforms, so that you can get caught up. But without further ado, you know the drill. Weather is green. Our safety checks are complete and our wheels are up, 10-8 in service, visors down, and we are now off on to our journey of today's podcast. And so day 4, EMS and children's. So this is particularly important to me because I obviously have little nieces and nephews running around, and this gives me the opportunity to be able to tell you some of the stories that I've experienced through my family, as well as kind of show you some statistics and data points that are really important to kind of help facilitate keeping things at the forefront of our minds. So we're going to talk first about really the big kahuna, the one that gets most kids from ages 1 to 14. So from ages 1 to 14, the leading cause of death in children is drowning, and it's the first cause of death in children from 1 to 4 years of age, and the second cause between 5 to 14. So really, drowning is very important. It is the summer months. If you live in the southern part of the country like I do, water is kind of your recreation. So as growing up as a lifeguard, I had the experience to be able to do a lot of rescues and a lot of training with the water and rescuing kids and rescuing adults as well. And so it is very important to really keep this in the forefront of our mind as parents, caregivers, brothers, big sisters, because every year in the United States, 4,000 fatal unintentional drownings per the CDC. And that's really, these are tragic situations where us as first responders, it is very tough for us to go on these calls. We at Beyond the Sirens try to humanize behind the badge, because we are not machines. We are not Terminator, cyborg, robot, RoboCop. We feel these calls are etched in our every fiber of our being for the rest of our lives, usually. And so we want to make sure we emphasize the importance of keeping an eye on those kiddos, water wings and things like that for those at certain ages and those who can't swim, and advocating for swim lessons are very important if you're going to be around water, because if you've got a child between the ages of 1 and 14, they are at a high risk of this being an emergency situation for them. And so we want to do everything in our power to be able to curb these statistics by bringing these statistics to the forefront and making you aware, so that we can kind of, continue to make this a priority and thing to focus on. Something else as it pertains to children that is kind of on a top list of priorities is child car seat safety. The stats on this are pretty profound as well, kind of really saying that 40% of 8 and 12-year-olds who were killed in crashes were not buckled up. Just the simple seatbelt. And we're not even talking about the car seats for the littler ones. So really being mindful about making sure we have seatbelts on. I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. But we never can anticipate when an accident is going to happen and when an unfortunate tragedy is going to strike, because a lot of times it's not our fault. We can't really predict or control what is going on in other drivers and kind of the situation for other drivers. So we have to kind of act on behalf of those who kind of don't have it all together. And as we see, 31% of all children less than 4 years of age were not buckled up as well. That's concerning. That's a quite concerning statistic there. And alcohol impaired driving. So I really wish we don't have to have these kind of conversations. However, 24% of deaths among children passengers involved an alcohol impaired driver. 24%. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable if you are obviously one behind the wheel driving impaired with a child. It's just unacceptable, and it's an innocent life you have in your hands. So this may be a call to action to kind of get ourselves straight and protecting our children, because 24% of them are at risk of dying as a result of an alcohol impaired driver. So in 2020, 65% of all children ages 14 and younger were killed in crashes who rode with an unbuckled driver, as compared to 32% who were riding with a buckled driver. So kind of just going back to that theme here is, click it or ticket kind of thing, but really it's even more important than that, than a simple ticket. It's life or death in situations. It's really severe damage and injury and disability, if at the bare minimum. So really important. And then kind of car seat and booster seat misuse. Research who observed children riding in cars in 2011 study estimated 46% of car seats and booster seats are used incorrectly. So almost 50% of all those car seats out there are not being used as they were manufactured and as they were intended. So kind of call to arms out there. If you're a new time parent, big brother, big sister, and you're just kind of not sure, there's local fire departments. That's our job, to be able to help you. If at all else fails, reach out to your local first responders to help you really get this down, so we don't have more statistics like this. We really want to prevent these and things like that. And so kind of we're going to roll into choking and why it's important to really just know, like, the Heimlich maneuver. Why now we're kind of getting into day 5 and how we can save a life, how we can be there at the right time with the right set of knowledge and really make a difference. And I personally had a incident in my life 3 or 4 months ago where I had to utilize this specific maneuver on my niece. I had no fancy equipment. I had no fancy tools. I didn't have all of the cool things that a paramedic has or a flight medic has. It was just me and the knowledge that I was given, going all the way back to a basic CPR, first aid, choking class, and kind of really story time. This 1-year-old infant, toddler, is choking with my sister, and she's trying to dislodge the chicken nugget. Chick-fil-A strikes pretty hard, apparently. And so I was in the other room and I heard screaming, and she was trying to do it right. But then, when you're a parent trying to perform these acts that are pretty aggressive on your child, it can be very traumatic. The whole situation is traumatic. But to now ask a mother in complete distress to pound on her baby's back with enough force and the appropriate force to be able to do these technique correctly is not a reasonable request to ask of a parent who literally is holding their entire their life in their hands. So I rounded the corner, grabbed the little one, and started kind of just all of my training kicked in. All of the training from the mini CPR classes and the choking classes and the first aid classes, and we were able to, just in time before she passed out, was able to dislodge the chicken nugget. So that was my kind of eye-opening experiences to really is life-saving. Not to say I didn't believe in it, but it just solidified it. If it, does this really work or not? Because I've never in my entire career ever had to perform the back slaps and the back blows as they kind of, as you see in your classes, if you've ever taken one. And so I had to actually do it for real, and it worked. It dislodged the chicken nugget, and she was able to start able to breathe. And so that is why I'm a big advocate, and why I think it's so important to learn how to do the basic Heimlich maneuver. Now obviously this isn't going to replace any sort of thing you take in a course. This is just all stuff you can find online, but it's recommended that you see somebody who is trained to be able to really show you, and you can practice on the dummies and whatnot. But this kind of really says that 3,000 people who have died of choking in the year of 2020, 3,000 lives lost due to choking, and about 1,400 were as a result of somebody aged 74 and older. So our elderly community. So not just our peds are vulnerable here. We have our adults as well, our elderly, who are our vulnerable populations that we've got to look out for. If you've got a grandmother, you've got a kind of a grandmother or grandfather figure in your life, they are at very high risk of choking. And so this translates over to stop the bleed. Does this really work? Do I need to learn it? Does it, will it ever make a difference? And in fact, it shows that it does. It shows that the most common injuries requiring a bleed control intervention was a motorcycle collision. 35 or 34% were knife wounds and car accidents. And the participants reported that they did these different maneuvers: wound packing, direct pressure, tourniquet application, they found that because they were able to intervene, nearly all patients, 94%, survived. So because they had a trained person who took a stop the bleed course or something of that equivalent, 94% of those people that were laid hands on by a bystander were saved. That is an amazing number and an amazing statistic if you're a numbers person. 94% lived as a result of a bystander's Good Samaritan actions. And so this is an important reason why we should advocate for taking these courses, because they work, they save lives. And just don't take my word for it. And the stats and the research are all out there. And really, finally, CPR. CPR is incredibly important, but really, do you really think you need to know it? And I think yes. I think we all should have a basic understanding in CPR, because it showed that nearly 45% of out of hospital cardiac arrests victims survived when bystanders provided CPR. That number may not sound like a lot, but that's 45%. That's a human life that was saved because somebody went out and took a half a day out of their schedule to get a CPR class so that they knew what to do. And because it's really important, and this is something from a first responder perspective that I can kind of convey to you. It says, from 0 to 10 minutes, we have a window where we're starting to have brain death, and we could actually have irreversible brain damage. And sometimes the ambulance may be a distance away and may be coming from close by, but that delay between that person not having their heartbeat anymore and the ambulance arriving may be enough time to start causing brain death. So that time between the person going down and the ambulance arriving is critically important and crucial. And I have specifically seen in my career where those who did CPR on their loved one or on somebody who was suffering from a cardiac arrest survived, or at least we got a heartbeat back. And so these numbers are just incredibly profound to say, go out and get, certified and stop the bleed, and go out and get certified in CPR. And these are a small monetary price for a huge benefit of saving a life or a fellow loved one. It's just an incredibly rewarding experience to be part of saving a life. And so these are all kind of important things that we talk about in days 4 and days 5 of uh, EMS Appreciation Week, where we as public servants turn kind of our gaze away from ourselves and the appreciation for kind of what we do and all of that, and really get the chance to advocate to you all uh, and how we can be better public servants. And so I urge you all, from the bottom of my heart, to kind of take these, as seriously as you can, because we want to save as many kids as possible and prevent these statistics and kind of curb these statistics, and want to be able to uh, save a life. And we can do that by taking a class. And as we've seen, if you're a sports fan, the Damar Hamlin situation, the fact, in my personal opinion, and only my personal opinion alone, the fact that he got the quickest response you can probably get in a cardiac arrest, as well as early defibrillation, as well as all of the things happening very fast and timely, is more more than likely a strong contributor as to what saved his life. I have no doubt from my experience. So with all of that said, let's protect our kids, watch out for them and the most vulnerable, and our elderly and our children, for choking and for drownings, especially during these summer months. I urge you to go take a course. It is worth it and very rewarding, not only to be able to save a complete stranger's life, but to be able to provide care to a family member in need. So without further ado, we are going to kind of cap it off here. We're going to settle down, wheels down, visors up. We are back on the pad. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a privilege and honor to be able to provide you these podcasts, to be able to be kind of a voice beyond the sirens. We want to kind of change the status quo of how first responders are perceived. Do we want to change how uh, education is done in the first responder community? We want to do just a complete revamp and a complete flip, and that is what Beyond the Siren stands for, and what our mission statement is, and always will be. And so, without further ado, we will close out for the podcast. All engines are off. We are 10-7 out of service, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you all on the next podcast.